Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Peace Talks. This is a series where we catch up with the bands and the musicians that are coming to play for us at the Marr's Bar in Worcester. And today I'm joined by Hannah Clifton, who is bringing up or coming up with Ankora, an 8-piece ensemble that'll be coming up on I've got to look at me board now. That's terrible, is it? 12th of February. I've been working on a number of other bookings and dates today, so I've got loads of dates in my head. So welcome, Hannah, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm really excited to get the band up, but also to talk to you about sort of how the band came together and that. As we were preparing for this video, I mentioned to Hannah that normally we on these videos we would talk about the sort of band leader and kind of how their musical background and such, but with Ankora sort of coming from Tomorrow's Warriors Frontline and it being very much a sort of collaborative affair. I thought it'd be great to actually focus on that and Tomorrow's Warriors today, and we can talk a bit about that and kind of how that's helped you all get together and develop as musicians, and then sort of talk about your respective careers and such also, because you've all got other projects going on as well. A couple of band have already been up. We'll touch on that later on. So so let's start then with Tomorrow's Warriors and kind of how you all kind of came into that, how you personally got into it, and how you met and kind of what it's done for you.
Yeah, that's really where it all begins. Maybe it's helpful. I can kind of tell a little bit of how I came into Tomorrow's Warriors. So that was about 6.5 years ago. I lived in Kent at the time and had kind of had a bit of an introduction to jazz at school. I was very lucky. I was one of the rare schools that has a music department and it was thriving. But I hadn't really had any kind of jazz education in groups or in the way that Tomorrow's Warriors offers it. And I had just heard on the grapevine that they were the place to go. So I contacted them. There was a big waiting list, and I kind of sat on the waiting list. But Beth at the time, who was kind of looking after the younger members, she said, come along to this jam at Rich Mix while you're on the waiting list. That's a really good way to learn. You can meet other musicians. That's how it all kind of starts for you. Which to me at that time was terrifying, the thought of playing in front of strangers in a genre that I didn't really play. I'd grown up in the brass band and classical world.
Right.
This was all very new to me. But I went along with my dad and sat in Rich Mix with my trumpet on my lap, but determined not to actually play. I just was kind of there to have my place on the waiting list and not really, it was all too scary. But the real nature of Tomorrow's Warriors is in what happened next. So Gary Crosby, one of the founders of Tomorrow's Warriors, along with his wife, Janine Irons, he spotted me in the audience and came over and he said, that trumpet looks really nice on your lap, but what would look even better if you got on that stage and played it. And I said, I don't know what they're playing. He said, it's C minor, just get up there and do something. And so that was really the beginnings of what Tomorrow's Warriors is for me, just that kind of push. It's that confidence building. Just get up there. We'll help you with the details later, but the important thing is showing up. And so I then joined the program a couple of months after that and was going kind of every weekend to their free jazz workshops, learning from people like Binker Golding, Ben Burrell, then later Sultan Stevenson. And that's at that time I met Marley, who's in the band, alto sax player. And I think a few others were kind of in the early parts. They were starting to join Tomorrow's Warriors, but I didn't meet most of them until later. Marley and I sat in that class together. Fast forward to September 2022. all of us in Ankora were part of Tomorrow's Warriors classes, but hadn't really met. There were a few different classes at
Mm.
different times. Some of us knew each other, but we just got this email one day to say, you've been invited to join this band, come along at this time on this day, and you're going to meet your music leader and we'll see what happens. And that was the first time what is now Ankora got together with Romana Campbell, who's a music leader and drummer. Have
Yes,
you met
just coming
her?
up. We actually had her
Oh,
booked
yeah.
last year to play. I did a series. We
Yeah.
opened the year with a series of four drummer-led bands, and Miranda from
Yeah.
Ankora brought her quartet up with Clara, which who's in the lineup as well. And yeah, because we actually had Romana booked, and then she had to cancel because she was
Oh,
out in the US, and I think there's
yeah.
also couldn't get a keyboard player, wasn't able to make it as well. So yeah, that's when I'd already spoken, I think, to Miranda, and so we were able to switch that gig out. But yeah, Romana's coming in March on the 26th of March. Yeah, so a couple of weeks
Amazing.
after. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, she's brilliant. So that session really was, I don't think anyone of us would have predicted what's happened now from that day. I, we just sat in the room and really didn't speak much to each other. Romana had to do a lot of the heavy lifting of
right.
just trying to get us to kind of come out of our shell a little bit. We, we'd been playing jazz for a while, but yeah, just a completely new situation for all of us. And we didn't really know what the plan was. Somebody in Tomorrow's Warriors HQ had a vision and put these names in the room. But it really took some months of just sitting for hours with each other, trying out different snippets of music, people bringing in ideas, but really Romana saying, like, you're capable of this. Come on, like, step up, be
Mm,
confident. You need to put yourself out there. The same kind of thing that Gary was saying to me at that jam all those years before. And then what's happened between then and now is quite a mystery to me. It just worked. It just
right.
worked. The band had to do 4 gigs in 1 week in April of
Wow.
2023. And that was
Oh, was
our
that have been? You would have done the Brick Lane Jazz Festival then? Was that in 23?
uh, yeah,
Yeah, because that would
hang
have been
on.
April 20. Because I thought I've seen you. I think Frontline played there twice, didn't they? Because Tomorrow's
Yeah,
Warriors take over the tap room. So yeah,
yeah.
I think that probably would have been the first time I saw the band play together, actually.
Wow. Yeah, so we did our first ever gig was in Colchester. Um, and just kind of maybe it was helpful to be out of London. I think we kind of just were like, we have to step up. We don't know this crowd at
Yeah.
all. They don't know us, and we have to just give them something. And so we had all these back-to-back gigs, the first time we were ever performing live, and we just made it happen. And I think it was quite a shock to everyone. Tomorrow's Warriors took a big risk on us.
Hmm.
That could have easily backfired. They booked us those gigs, and they didn't know if we could handle it live. To be
Right.
honest, the stagecraft needed some work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was a bit messy. We were nervous. We didn't really know what we were saying, but the audience were very kind.
Hmm.
And there was something in there to work with.
And
Um,
was that a headline gig that you had, or were you on there with other bands as well?
Yeah, so that was a headline gig. We had another band in Colchester called Raz opening for us. They're a local
Hmm.
trio, so that was nice. They were so supportive of us, wanting to help us out. They'd played that venue before, so
Yeah.
they kind of gave us the rundown and were very kind, taking videos and things. So that was so nice. And then yeah, it just grew from there. We started really leaning into the writing original music. realizing that audiences tend to prefer that. There's something about that that's a little bit unique. Not every band is writing original music and performing it in the way that we've been able to and have been encouraged to from the start. So yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Mm.
Yeah,
So let's talk, because I realised we sort of started talking about Tomorrow's Warriors, and there might be some
yeah,
viewers that, because I grew up around London, and sort of I knew I was getting into jazz when the Jazz Warriors, Gary and
yes,
those guys were coming around the first time, and that's where it's born
yeah,
from. So do you want to just tell us a little bit about the organisation itself and kind of when it, where it's come from, and what they're actually doing?
yeah. Sorry, I should have
Oh,
given a
no, it's no problem.
It's just a really beautiful project that started 35 years ago, I think. So Gary Crosby, as you say, was part of the Jazz Warriors, and realizing that at the time in the London jazz scene, there weren't um, many opportunities for jazz musicians of color and women, particularly, to receive jazz education and to perform, to kind of receive that mentorship, and especially in a way that they didn't have to pay for. Music education, as you'll know, is extremely expensive
Mm,
sometimes. And so Janine, Gary's wife, and Gary had this vision of creating opportunities for young people, taking everything that they had learned from their experiences, the Jazz Warriors, using all of their connections and creating space for young musicians to just experiment and kind of not have the pressure of an environment that wasn't welcoming to them, I
mm,
think.
yeah.
Um, and so they started, as far as I know, with kind of jams. The Jazz Cafe was one of those early places. There are a few locations around London that are kind of part of Tomorrow's Warriors history, but the Jazz Cafe has kind of
Mm,
stayed one of those that we love going back to. So yeah, that um, group at the time was quite small and I think quite informal. And then it just grew. Those musicians were really developing and creating music in an amazing way. Those kind of people early on, I think Dennis Baptiste was one
mm,
of them. Um, People that are really have made their mark on the jazz scene and continue to. Dennis mentored our band for a little bit as well. Um, and then you get kind of people like Binka Golding coming along a little bit later, and through the years, all of those big names now start to arrive as young people and be mentored by the previous generation. And it grew into something much bigger, I think, and kind of needed to become a more formal education program once
right.
it grew
Mm,
beyond a certain size. Um, it still kept its character of those kind of jam sessions and the real friendliness and mentorship of older generations. But there was a point at which it moved to the South Bank Centre and became a program every weekend, uh, lessons with those people that had been in the early sessions in the
mm,
jazz cafe now as teachers. Um, yeah, kind of just bringing something. There are other weekend music programs in London run by conservatoires and other organisations that you have to pay huge amounts for.
yeah.
But this was the first of its kind that was entirely free, um, just gave anybody access. And so yeah, the fruits are really obvious. You talk to people all over the jazz scene and they know these names, they know the organization Tomorrow's Warriors. And it's just, yeah, I think something I have huge admiration for and respect for, just the perseverance of those early leaders and
Yeah,
founders, and like the challenges that must have come up over the years. I really can't imagine. But 35 years later, it's still going, still receiving funding,
yeah,
and still mentoring. I have had the privilege of being a teaching assistant occasionally on the program. Now, people that I came through the program with are teaching weekly, mentoring young musicians as young as 11, and the kind of motto has always been each one teach one.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
how it's kept going. You might have heard people say that
Indeed,
before.
yeah, yeah. I think that's really good because it is a, you've got the leadership of Gary and Janine,
Yeah,
that's sort of behind it all, but it is very much you can see that it's very much a community project,
yeah,
that everyone gets involved, and you're all part of it, keeping it going for the next generation, which is fantastic to see. And it was
yeah,
also great to see at the last Brick Lane Jazz Festival, Gary's Africa Space Program. Did you see
yeah.
the gig?
I couldn't make it,
Oh no,
unfortunately.
yeah,
It
'cause
looked
that was
amazing.
awesome. That was with Steve Williamson as well, because I
Yes.
saw him play when he was starting out in the early 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, he played a couple of big gigs in St Albans, which is near where I lived at the time.
Amazing.
And then he kind of went off the scene, didn't he? So it was great to see. And then yeah, Dennis Baptiste in there, and oh, on drums. God, I've lost. Can't remember
Was it
now.
Rod or
No. Anyway, it'll come. I wrote I
yeah,
wrote a review for it. It's on the it's on the Jazz Man. It'll be in there.
amazing.
But yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's fantastic to see that. That's still those guys are still
yeah,
there and creating stuff, and new projects and stuff. But there's
yeah,
the younger artists coming through, and there's been some really good successes that have come through, Tomorrow's Warriors as well. Is there any favourites of yours that you've had an opportunity
mm.
to work with, or?
Yeah. I mean, it's been amazing. Just that I think the one of the amazing things about Tomorrow's Warriors is that relationship between generations of musicians. We could approach any of the older and more established musicians for advice or help or kind of opportunities, and they'll listen to us, and give us the time. I We had a really lovely gig with Camilla George early
Right.
on in the kind of frontline beginnings, at Foyle's bookshop, and she was just amazing. She completely understood what Frontline was and wanted to be. She had been in a similar position herself. She brought some of her own compositions and just trusted us with them.
Mhm.
And that was an amazing thing for her to bring something, and again, a risk. We could have messed up something that she's written. We're playing it in public.
Mm.
That's her reputation on the line. But she let us do it, and hopefully she's happy with how it went. So yeah, Camilla George, people like Nabaya Garcia, um, Ezra Collective, Femi Colioso was so lovely to us. We played Cheltenham Jazz Festival
Mm.
a few years ago, and he was in the audience. That was unknown
Oh
to us
wow.
at the time. I think it might have scared us a bit more if we knew. But it was so lovely afterwards, just really encouraging. He's one of those people that really believes in youth mentorship and putting the time in to raising up young people
Mm.
in this environment. So yeah, so many. Have you come across the band Naria at all?
I haven't. No.
No. So
I shall make a
Naria,
note.
yes, amazing band. They were one of the original Frontline groups. So Frontline, for anyone that's not come across us before, is one of the Tomorrow's Warriors, what they would call a flagship ensemble. So we have education programs, kind of group lessons at the weekends, And separate to that, there are performing ensembles. So you go for your lessons, but then you might be invited to join an ensemble
Hmm.
and then be offered gigs. So Frontline is an all-female ensemble just designed to champion women's voices in jazz, to give a platform that everyone kind of mutually understands that experience of what it's like to be performing as a woman in the scene. And so Frontline has had many iterations, many before us, hopefully many after
Mm.
us. And Naria is one of those. So it had Nabaya Garcia, Shirley Tete, Sheila Morris Gray, some amazing musicians,
Right.
amazing
So
names.
how long's the how long's it been running in the front line? Because I wasn't I know I wasn't aware of it. I don't think before I'd seen you guys in
Yeah,
23.
yes, it had a bit of a break before us.
Right.
Our version of Frontline was a kind of relaunch. Honestly, I don't know when the first one was. I think what is now Naria was maybe the first, or
Okay.
the first that I know about. So that would have been kind of maybe 10 to 15 years before.
Right. Okay.
Um, and then there was one after that. Um, it yeah, it's kind of been called female frontline at times, been called just frontline. So yeah, that has evolved, and there's now a new frontline. We Ankora is a kind of rebrand. We've flown the nest a
Yeah.
little bit. Maybe I'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, there's now a new generation, which is super exciting.
Cool. Yeah. So let's talk about the band Ankora and who's in it. There's a couple of familiar faces. So we had Miranda up
Hmm.
in February last year with Clara Devlin on trumpet in her quartet.
Yes.
But yeah, so talk us through the band.
Yeah. So the lineup, maybe we'll start with Kira Chakraborty on flute, then Clara, as you say, on trumpet alongside myself. We've got Marley Sheard on alto sax, then Tammy Adebanjo on the guitar, Kezia Aborma on piano, Holly Reinhardt is on the bass, and then Miranda Radford, as you say, on the drums. And so this is what has evolved out of Frontline. So in the summer last year, we were having conversations with Tomorrow's Warriors, saying like, you've given us all of these lessons and we just want to learn from those and take it in our own direction. I think we're
Yeah.
ready. And so lots of those um, musicians are already gigging with other ensembles. Clara's got her own band, Kira's got her own band, Marley has, Kezia, Miranda. They're all gigging with kind of quartets,
Yeah.
quintets, and that had developed over the couple of years that we were being mentored as Frontline. So now people in the band really had the tools to go and do things more independently. So we kind of came to Tomorrow's Warriors and said, "We're ready. I think we can do it."
Brilliant.
Um, yeah, and that's how it became what it is. Came up with the name, and yeah, we're at a nice stage now of some names in the band are recognizable to people in the London jazz scene. I think especially Clara, since being on the BBC.
Mm.
Um, she was, yeah, in the final of BBC Young Jazz Musician, just incredible. And yeah, others in the band are well known and really well connected. So we're in a really exciting stage of some new opportunities.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think so. It was last year the sort of transition from Frontline to
Mm.
Ankora happened. So and you've had one gig up in the Wolverhampton Jazz at
Yes,
the it was still the NAC then, wasn't it? New Hampton Art. It's now the Wolverhampton Art Centre, the WAC.
Yeah.
So they have a great program up there, and they've actually during the summer they do a Sunday lunchtime
Mm.
session in the cafe area that with some of the local younger bands from the conservatoire in Birmingham.
Oh, amazing.
So that's cool. So yeah, getting out around the country now and getting
Yeah.
a few more regional audiences, which is fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'd like to also kind of explore because you're all young musicians, sort of coming out of education and into the world of music as it is and going into the second quarter of the 21st century. There we go. Um, what's it like? I mean, if you know, if there's a young 10, 11-year old person watching, thinking, I'd quite
Yeah.
like to pick up an instrument, or they maybe have picked up an instrument and are quite good at it, and looking at kind of where do I go from here? Is there a career to be made out of music these days, especially jazz? I mean, who's playing jazz? That's old man music, isn't it? So
Well,
yeah, talk about kind of your feelings on that and
yeah. Oh, it's really hard. Okay, what I would say to a 10 or 11-year-old person is it's hard work, but it is possible. Um, my I've, I'm somewhat unqualified to talk about this. I'm at medical school at the moment. The rest of the band is in conservatoire and
right.
doing this full time. So I'm using what I've heard from them as well as a bit of my own
Mhm.
experience. Um, but I think the general experience is um, you you have to really graft at this thing. It is possible to make a living from music, and most people are doing that through a number of avenues. So some teaching, kind of one-to-one, group teaching, some work in other people's ensembles. If you have your own ensemble and you're writing your own music, fantastic, but it needs supplementing with lots of other avenues
Mm.
if you're going to stay afloat income wise, to be completely realistic about it. And so, what I see from other members of the band is just that kind of sheer graft. They're really working hard at this. Part of that is about developing the craft of it, the musical voice, understanding their unique perspective to bring to the world through the music. But also part of that is the very practical, maybe less interesting, kind of businessy mindset that I think, it's a shame in one sense that artists have to have now, and have to be very entrepreneurial about, but it is necessary in kind of economic climate that we have to be savvy about those things. Tomorrow's Warriors gave us a really helpful workshop with PRS
Right.
just before we were leaving to kind of become our own thing. Um, and so there are a lot of organizations to support with it. Musicians Union, I think, does some really good stuff. There's an organization, Women in Jazz, as well.
Yeah.
There are lots of people
That's Lou
trying.
Paley heads that up, doesn't she? Is that
Pardon?
is that Lou Paley heads that up, doesn't she?
Yes.
Women in Jazz. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there are kind of support networks and safety nets for people. At the moment, our band is very lucky, kind of, uh, in this sense, I think, because what Conservatoire does. So at the moment, six of the band are in Conservatoire. Tammy graduated just last year, and what it does is give you that kind of uh, in between period of you have some income from student finance
Hmm.
while you're building your networks, you're working out your opportunities and your options, and you're kind of, if you're intentional about it, you're building a name for yourself. and starting to grow what could become a full-time career. That I think is a really lovely thing if it's possible for a person. Not everyone can go to conservatoire. In itself, it's a financial
Yeah,
commitment. It's not accessible to everyone, but what it has done, certainly for those 7 members of the band, is to say there's a little bit of a safety net while you go and
yeah.
fully focus on the art, fully
Hmm.
focus on the music. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I've been really fascinated. I don't know if you've seen in Ireland, there's been a trial of a basic income for artists.
Yes, yeah,
I, I have been finding that really fascinating, reading how that's gone, because it seems to be really successful. Um, the stats from that, it's a very small kind of experiment, but that is an exciting thing in my mind to have that kind of freedom for an artist to say, like, this amount is taken care of.
yeah,
You can fully focus on what you have to say to the world,
yeah.
because we need artists to be freed up for that stuff. We need creative people, because AI won't save us, in my opinion. I think you talked about AI with the last person.
Yeah, I mean
You-
it's a subject you can't avoid, and
yeah,
there's all sorts of it's new relatively, but it's also progressing at an insane rate. It's getting huge amounts of investment.
yeah,
That's in some ways is driving a bubble. That's kind of where's that really going to go? Um, and I think it does open up. We're in a situation where we're here, and it's kind of it's happening, and and the way that people consume music and consume art generally has changed, and creative stuff has changed so much over the last 10 years even. And not just streaming. I think that's obviously a huge um, I think it was a huge benefit to start with. In for me, like when I started using Spotify in 2014, I think,
mm,
and it opened up an experience that I used to have. So when I was in my 20s, late teens and 20s, and getting into music, it was, I suppose, a bit of Jazz FM had just started then. The Jazz FM started in '92, I think.
mhm,
So it's a bit before that, but I used to have a local record shop, and I go to the record shop, and the guy there knew kind of, he knew his customers and what they like, and he go, "Oh, this
yeah,
coming, you might like that."
yeah,
Um, and then I'd start going to gigs, like the Jazz Cafe, and in Hoxton they had the bass clef and the tenor clef,
nice,
um, and a couple of other places around. And the thing is, you get to see someone play, and then 2 nights later they'd be playing with a different lineup and such like that. So you get to experience like, but that was your discovery, And
yeah,
where were the gigs? Time Out magazine, and things like
yeah,
that, or
yeah,
Wire and stuff like that. And so that discovery, I suppose, I got in then into it. I used to play bass back then. I never sort of did it as aspirations to do anything as a sort of career as a musician, but just as a bit of fun. And that was really useful for me to sort of, I was interested in the other kids that I was sort of trying to put bands together with, wanted to do sort of police covers and stuff like that, which is grand.
yeah,
Um, but I wanted to do stuff that was a bit more exciting that I was listening to. And so it was actually being able to go to those, venues and
mhm,
such like that, and meet people that are doing that. That kind of,
yeah,
yeah, it's worth doing. Let's other people
yeah,
are doing it, sort of thing. So,
yeah,
and then yeah, so I kind of stopped going to gigs. I met my wife. We had a family. I had a career and everything else. Um, and so I suppose it was around about that time, 2014, as with streaming and such like that, I started listening to more new music,
mm,
and then started. I actually went. I think I think it may well have been, strangely enough, my first or one of my earliest visits to Ronnie Scott's, even though I grew up in Watford and sort of was
Okay.
always going into London. I don't think I ever went into Ronnie Scott's, or very, and it was 2013 on my 42nd birthday that I actually, but I think I went for the first time, I saw Billy Cobham there.
Amazing.
Um, and actually that gig kind of sort of spawned things on. But yeah, it's and so now and now I sort of 3 or 4 gigs a week and such like that, and it's just trying to see as much new stuff as well.
Yeah.
Original. I'm much more excited by going to see original music and stuff that I've not heard before. So I think streaming opened that up for me, and I think a lot of people have got the same experience. To start with, it was really good, and it was kind of it would suggest stuff that you based on what you listen to, like that guy in the record shop that no longer exists.
Yeah.
Because you probably like this because but the other thing I noticed as well is that you then have a detachment from the people that are playing. Because one of the things that I always used to, like I said, but you go to a gig and you see someone's on bass, you go, oh, that's quite good. Oh, they're playing with another band somewhere. Oh, I'll go and watch that. And I used to do the same with albums. You get an album, you look at the sleeve and you say, so and so is playing on that. And quite often I'd be attracted by the artwork on the album. I'd be browsing through our price records. Oh, that looks interesting.
Mhm.
The cover looks interesting. You've got something to
Yeah. Yeah.
sort of connect with, I suppose. And then you start reading the back and you look at the musicians. And go, oh, I know him. Yeah, I'll buy that. So I think that side of it was lost as well. Because you just have the sound. I suppose it's a bit like radio, but even on radio, the presenters will usually say something about the band. Especially if it's a specialist radio station that's more about specialist music. So I think that's kind of lost. But what's your own experience been with? You probably haven't done much in the way of recording yet, but with kind of I suppose the technology that's available to produce stuff independently and get stuff out there. And what's the sort of the pros and cons of that from your perspective?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's something we talk about a lot as a band. There are kind of maybe two sides to this. There's the content creation kind of social media version of recording and promoting yourself as a band, and then kind of a more traditional recording, producing records, things like that. So we had a very small experience of recording in April last year. We just recorded 3 tunes as something to send to promoters and
Yeah,
venues at the Crypt Studios.
those are the ones that are on YouTube, aren't they?
Yes,
Actually, yeah, cool.
those are, yeah, all available on our YouTube channel. But that was our kind of first taste of it, and I think the common feeling among the band and the wider jazz scene is you really need to have a record out there or records out there
Hmm.
um, if this is going to go anywhere. I think we know as a band that in order to sustain this project, if this is something that we believe in, then we need to kind of really pin something down as a permanent record of what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of going back to is it possible to do this as a career? It needs something like a record is really useful, partly as a tool to say this is what we're up to,
Yeah.
this is the kind of work, the kind of project that we believe in, but also yeah, as a way to connect with people. As you say, people find records in a way that they maybe don't find gigs. They can stream anywhere in the world, and then if they can never see your gig, they've still heard you.
Yeah.
So there's that side of things, and I think that's something we would really love to do. The financing of all of that is difficult, as always, and it takes a huge amount of work and coordination to make that happen. It's in the kind of background of I think we would love to do that at some point. We have always been really nervous and hesitant about the social media side of being a band. I think we just have and it's quite rare for 8 people to agree on something like this. We just all have a kind of inbuilt hesitation about becoming content creators.
Hmm.
We really want the center of this, the identity of Ankora, to be about the music, about the tradition of this music, the history of it, and then the kind of newness that we can bring to it with original composition, with improvisation, with what is happening in a live setting. And we know that in order to get those kind of gigs at the moment, often the way to do it is to have a really good social media account, to have a kind of brand, and to put lots of effort into the algorithm essentially. But there's something in us that just says, like, yeah, we could do that. We're capable of putting out content all the time and making it palatable to the audiences of Instagram and
Mm.
Facebook,
Mm.
TikTok. We could do that, but we actually don't really want to direct our energy there. That takes the people that do that. I don't want to dismiss that as a way of doing this, partly because it's often necessary and it is a lot of hard work.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
To make that amount of content is a lot of hours, a lot of understanding the industry, of understanding this mysterious algorithm that favors some things and doesn't favor others. That is in itself a job. For us, it's something that would take away from our focus on the music and the live experience, which is
Yeah,
what we love the most.
yeah. And I think it's yeah. I've been involved in a couple of discussions recently on thoughts on this, and I think it is a valid way for someone to make money out of a musical talent.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of, especially on Instagram and TikTok, shredding videos and people playing fast and ridiculously complicated bits of passages of music.
yeah,
Um, and it's funny. I was thinking back to when I was playing bass, and a milestone for me, which is probably for a lot of bass players, is Jaco Pastoris's Teen Town. And I
nice. Yeah,
remember working and working away at that, and then the evening that I kind of got it and played through. I don't think he even got to playing through the whole thing, but got through a good chunk of it. I've still got the book in my bookcase there of bass lines that had it in there. I was so chuffed with myself, and I went down the pub and I said, "Yeah, I just learnt Teen Town." And people, "Oh, what's that?" He's Jaco Pastorius. It's like, oh, and then 5 minutes later, that had all sort of died down, and we were talking about I don't know, Paul, and there was a guy who was a bird watcher. He'd just been on a trip or whatever. Also you didn't have that kind of if you was a bass player learning or a trumpeter or whatever at home, and you kind of hit that milestone. Your family might be enjoying you in that excitement, and a couple of your mates might get excited about it, but then it's kind of that's it, and you kind of then got to move on to the next thing.
yeah,
And to me, it was always about playing with, you've got to learn to play your instrument, but especially bass. I mean, no one wants to watch a bass player just playing the bass line, but they do, don't they? That's the thing. You watch,
yeah,
there's loads of them, and guitarists and saxophonists and everything that, as you say, they put a lot of time and effort into producing those, and in many cases are able to monetize that, through ad revenue or whatever else. So it's a it is a legitimate way of
yeah,
making a living out of the skills that you've got.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, to me, it's all for me. The way I enjoy and experience music has always been preferred as live, in a room where things
yeah,
do go wrong, and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
a song gets restarted. Oh, can we just start that one again? Um, and
yeah,
but you're in a room with other people in the audience as well, and it's a
yeah,
whole shared experience. It's not,
yeah,
and I think that's a big part of humanity is that we're kind of moving away from with online communities, because everyone's just sort of, it's one a relationship with these things.
Yeah,
and it's in isolation.
yeah.
It's kind of
My kind of feeling about all of it is if we are moving to versions of this that lose relational human connection, then we're going in the wrong direction. Like everything is telling us we need to connect with each other more. All,
mm,
all, all of the mental health statistics that are coming out, all of the anecdotal evidence, you talk to people, there's like, you can read all about a male loneliness epidemic at the moment. There is a huge amount of loneliness, lack of connection with people, lack of third spaces. So a gig venue would be one of those. It's
mm,
somewhere that's not your house or your workplace that
yeah,
you meet with other people and have a communal experience in. Sometimes feeling something that you needed to feel or you weren't expecting to feel, and it's brought something out of you. Hopefully, if the art has done
yeah,
something, and people need those. But I think we, there is a huge opportunity in the online stuff as an introduction, as a gateway to an in-person experience, to a live experience, and to connect beyond kind of geographical boundaries when we're far away from each other.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. And
but
going back to like when I was, in my 20s and in the early 90s, I had a 4-track cassette recorder, Tascam thing. So, and I had a drum machine, I actually started playing trumpet for a little bit as well. My younger sister, played clarinet, and
yeah,
so we put stuff together on the 4-track, and then you got a cassette. You got one cassette, and you might make a copy of that, but every copy you make gets worse quality and stuff like that. So
yeah,
you might hand it out to a friend. But now I can do something on my laptop, um, upload it to
mm,
Spotify within hours, and it's out there for anyone anywhere in the world to hear. Now, whether or not they hear it, you then got
yeah,
directed to them.
yeah,
But at least that process of getting your music out to it, or making it at least accessible to people is a lot easier than here's a cassette
yeah,
that I made. It sounds really wobbly.
yeah. And it's a real, I think, responsibility to steward well. Like we can easily just record something in 30 seconds as a band and put it straight on social media and receive some kind of interaction from that, some kind of praise or credit, whatever it is. We have to be careful, and I think we feel this quite deeply. Is like there is a craft to this that we have to respect. The barrier to getting your music out to the world, say 20, 30, 40 years ago, was much higher. The the craft of it had to be really worked on, and the threshold for being able to be heard by somebody else, with like the quality had to be high in a way that we could just cobble anything together and share it now.
Mm,
um, and so I think in many ways that can be helpful to lose the kind of perfectionism of it.
mm,
But I think for us as a band, we really want to respect that way of doing things that was like, okay, we're not going to share this particular thing until we've got it to a certain level,
yeah.
until because that's partly a respect for the audience and for the music itself. Like, how do we work away at this until it is of a standard that we're happy with, or that takes the audience to that level of experience?
Mm,
That because I think uh, sometimes so Binker Golding used to teach a lot of us, right,
mhm,
in these weekend warriors classes. And I just remember him saying once, like, you are playing your gig and you're happy to be there, like you're excited, whatever. Your audience members have paid to sit there or stand there. They might have worked 2-3 hours to pay for the cost of that ticket, you have to respect their time and effort. Like, they've come out from their
Yeah,
warm house, they've traveled, they've made the effort, they've put their hard-earned money into seeing you play this. You have to respect them by making the music of quality. If you don't practice, you go up there and it's sloppy, you kind of have just thought, oh, another gig, let me get
yeah,
through this one, or I've got to do, and yeah, too much hard work. If that's a form of disrespect to the person who's put time and money and effort into seeing you. And so I think, as much as the online space for us is a real opportunity, and we love the new connections that are happening through it,
hmm
um, we have to steward it really carefully. And we're in the early days of being a band, but just trying to work that out.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's good to hear. And I get a feeling that things are starting to shift. Attitudes to online are starting to shift. Um, well, I suppose specific examples with the Australia banning social media for children, and the UK government looking at sort of measures to put more control on that, because it is an addictive platform.
Yeah.
They are addictive platforms that a isolate people, but are also reward reaction, and that's all they reward. There's no
Mm.
um, there's no qualification of that reaction or what they're reacting to. The way to be successful is to provoke and to get a reaction. But in an isolated, in an increasingly isolated environment, and it's not really. Is it really an online community?
Yeah.
So I think there's, yeah, and I think also sort of distrust of AI as well. I'm sure that it will do. There are aspects in life and in industry and such that AI will make a lot of improvements.
Yeah.
Technology. When I was starting out in my career, computers were only just starting to be commonplace in the office, and I sort of jumped on that. I happened to be there at the right time and understood what how they worked and such like that, and made a career out of it, because that was how it was kind of progressing. So, technology does come, and the same has happened in the music industry and music, music making and such like that. Samplers, when samplers came out in the 80s or whatever, and you could buy I had a cheap Yamaha one that was like, I don't know, 80 quid or something. You could get it from Argos,
Yeah.
and you could sample
Yeah.
something and play it on a keyboard. And everyone's like, oh, that's going to ruin everything. We no longer need a string section in the studio because we can do it on a. So things change, but I think, like you say, you've got to steward that. You've got to look at what are you actually trying to achieve,
Mm.
and are you going to, if it's making money, if that's what you're into, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's your life goal to make money, then you're going to find a way to make as much money as you can.
Yeah.
If your life goal is to make paintings, you're going to paint and paint and paint and paint and produce as much
Yeah.
paint as
Yeah.
and we've all got a fixed period of time on the planet, and you've got to use it as you will. But I think, yeah, I get the feeling that there's a bit of a shift, and it'll never completely change. But I think that live music that's been in decline, I think, over the last 5 years, certainly since COVID, and sort of
Mm.
made a big adjustment. I think it's will become more valuable, and that
Yeah.
more people will kind of go back out to live music and go, oh yeah, this is good, and hopefully start experiencing new music from that, not just going and watching a covers band, from or tribute acts from their younger days, but engaging older people with younger music, but also
Mm.
getting younger people out to listen to new music that they've not heard of before, and hopefully get into something new.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hope so.
And if they are inclined to pick up a trumpet,
Yeah. Please pick up
don't
the
sit
trumpet.
don't sit in the audience with it on your lap.
No, exactly. Exactly.
Because that's where it starts, right? You get up and you have a go.
Yeah, I really believe in all of that. And like for me that was a completely transformative experience, and just to be encouraged from a really young age to express myself in this way.
Yeah.
It's something that not everyone gets access to, and like a lot of people have put up with some really bad trumpet playing from me over the years. My family have had to put up like the first maybe 3 to 5 years of playing the trumpet sounds absolutely terrible, and I have
I've
a
done
very
it.
gracious family who put up with that every day, hearing bad trumpet playing, because they could see what it was doing for me
Yeah.
as a very shy child who wouldn't speak to anyone, but would keep turning up to these music lessons, and something was happening. And that's something that I wish everyone had access to. Yeah, and like hugely grateful to so many. I could list so many names of people who did that for me, and the each one teach one
Yeah.
mentality of tomorrow's warriors instructs me to do the same for other people. I
Mm.
hope I will be a part of making that possible. I hope that whoever's listening to this, if the opportunity is there to make that possible for a young person, like do it, because it does change the game. And I think, as you say, like we'll see a kind of repopularization of all of this live music, realizing the necessity of raising young people in these kind of creative environments. Because when we don't, the evidence is so clear. Like we people miss out. People
Yeah.
miss out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see that in all of the medical context in the other part of my life as well. People who don't have access to spaces like this really suffer from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, we'll see you all together on Thursday the 12th. And I know there's a few people who've already contacted me, and they'll be bringing their teenage daughters and sons along, which is great.
Excellent.
Always happy to have that. And yeah, so safe trip up on
Thank
Thursday.
you.
So
Thank
it's
you.
Thursday the 12th of February.
Yes.
It'll be another full stage and hopefully another full auditorium
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, we've got some brand new music for you that
Ah,
no
fantastic. There we
so
go. Worcester hears it
exclusive.
for the first time.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
excellent. It's been really real pleasure chatting with you today, Hannah. Thanks so much for your time.
Likewise.
And yeah, really looking forward to the gig.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent.
Exciting.
Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.